aware, we are a headless platform. If you're into GraphQL and React, then you'll probably love us. So I want to start off, before I pass the torch to Fredrik, say a few things about the conference. So this is an online conference, as you may as well know. I want to say a big thanks to all our sponsors that made this possible. Actually, we will be having quite some hard time without them. So be sure to check them out at some point. And our first talk is with Fredrik. There will be one talk each hour. And at the end of each talk, after Fredrik has presented what he wants to say, then we'll have some time for questions if there's any. So feel free to write them in the chat on YouTube, and I'll pass that on to Fredrik after he's done. So without further ado, sorry for doing that to you, Fredrik, and keeping you waiting, but I wanted to inform the guys, especially since this is the first talk. So I think I'll stop sharing screen now, and you're up with your talk. So enjoy, everyone, and yeah, if there's anything, just have anything you want to ask in the chat. Cheers.
So yeah, thank you, and welcome to my talk about how to avoid dehydration. So really cool to be part of this event. Really cool to be able to kick things off. Big thanks to the organizers for pulling it together. Hopefully we can do it physical soon, but yeah, for now I think this is fun too. So yeah. A little bit about me. My name is Fredrik Jensen. I work as a front-end full-stack developer. Right now as an independent consultant. Been doing that for 3 or 4 years now. Before that, I did work at different agencies, consultancies, stuff like that. Worked with like everything from large enterprise projects to small projects to startups. Have a design background, used to work as a designer, but that's getting like 15 years ago now, or at least 10. Done a lot of React stuff lately, so I'm mostly focusing on React for the last 5 years. So yeah, right now I'm working with an awesome team over at Remarkable, so a Norwegian startup slash scale it. So yeah, let's go ahead. So the key to avoid dehydration, I think, is to hydrate correctly. So that might be easier said than done. For our humans, it's easy to forget at times, at least now, it's summer coming in. For our code, it's kind of the same, as the concepts are quite easy, at least to do it with a framework like React, but it's quite easy to forget as well. And then this bugs pop-ups that is known as hydration bugs. So yeah, and every time that happens, it feels a little bit like this, what is happening here? What is happening to the DOM? The DOM is starting to act really, really strange, and really strange things happens. And these kind of bugs keep like coming back and back, it seems, in different kind of projects. So I think the first time I discovered them was when I started using Next, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And this thing hydration just did pop up for me and did break things. And after that, I think they have come back like once or twice a year or something. The bad thing is that they often happen directly in production without you ever noticing in development. So that's kind of why I want to like bring this topic up a little bit more. So first, I just want to go briefly through server-side rendering and static site generation. I'm not going to go really deep into this, but just briefly to ensure that we are on the same path, and that's going to lead us to hydration quite soon. So These frameworks, great frameworks, use them a lot myself. I think they simplifies a lot of things, and they're quite opinionated, but in a good way, I think. So I think this is, at least for the projects I see here in Norway, is getting like the go-to for doing server-side rendering and static site generation. So they have a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. Of course, they do a lot more than only static site generation and server-side rendering, but I think that's like the core concept when they was like created. Now they are more like maybe development platforms, and they offers a lot of things that simplify the workflow. But I think using this framework is also a little bit hard sometimes to forget what's actually going on under the hood of it. So, of course, it's React under the hood of both, and it's also ReactDOM that gives you the tools to do server-side rendering. So this frameworks are like built on top of this. I just want to share very briefly how you can do your own server-side rendered thing. But yeah, first just explain the difference of it. So you have a server-side rendering happening on every request, and you have a static site generation that happening on build time. And they are kind of the same thing. It's almost the same code, but they are executed at different times. So for server-side rendering, someone types in an address in the browser hits a web server, that web server runs Node, and Node runs React and parses the whole application and gives back your HTML to the browser together with your bundle and CSS and all that kind of things. Static site generation do almost the same, but at build time. So just build all this HTML file lying there ready for you to use. And you can host it wherever you want, and you don't need a web server. And you can put it on a CDN, and it can be blazing fast. Even though CDNs have had some issues the last day. But yeah, made really popular by the Jamstack. So I think that is one really important thing. I think it kind of bring back the more traditional HTML after a long time of client-side apps. So yeah, nice concepts. So hydration is actually React leveraging that already built HTML that this browser get. So the user can see something even before React has initialized and loaded. And React pick up that HTML and make it a real application. So that's like the base concept of hydration. It's not a new thing. It has been there for a long time. And first of all, hydration is optimization method. It's due to like render things fast and quick. At first, it was a part of the render method. In React 16, it was separated into a separate method. In React 18, in React 17, hydration on the render method was deprecated. In React 18 is going to be removed. So then you have to use the hydrate specific to hydrate. I think that's a good thing actually. So yeah, just very quickly going through how you can like make your own server-side render. You have your typical HTML file where you have this div where you mount your whole application into, and you have your loading your script and everything. So this is what the browser will see in like a regular client application. So then you have this index files, import ReactDOM, and run this render method, and then just mount your app client side inside your browser. Just made a really simple example app. This is a counting app, not very complicated. Just seeing a number, and then you can click the button to count up. So to do server-side rendering, this is actually all you need to do, like the basic HTML rendering. Of course, if you have a larger app, you need to handle things like state and those things. But just to generate HTML, this is actually all you need, and this is like pure React. So just import the file system, import React, and then you're reading the HTML file, the one I showed you first, and then you are actually passing your whole app into this method called ReactDOM server render to string, which is like where the whole magic happens. Quite powerful actually. So you can like turn every React component into an HTML file. Just taking some water. So then you have this string of HTML, and you find the div that you normally mount your client side into, and you just replace it with the same div with all the content of the HTML. And then you serve it, or you save it, like I do here. And then you have this, which if it could maybe be indented a little better, but then you can see the whole HTML that the server will get. And this will look like a real website when the browser gets it. And you can then run hydrate on it instead of render. So this one line at the bottom which do all the magic. And yeah, like I said, from React 18 you have to use hydrate to hydrate. Right now render also hydrates. So if you then try to load this with the browser, turn off JavaScript, you will still see this. You will still see a website, this very fabulous accounting app. But when you try to click the button, nothing will happen. It's just the HTML application. So then the browser will get your bundle, load React, and run hydrates, and it will activate your app and make it a living working application. Yeah, you will get attached all these event listeners and stuff, which is great. So working a little bit with this, and like I said, this like kept coming back. I got a little bit curious about what hydration actually means. And not coming from a computer background myself, I from time to time like stepping into this terms that don't make sense to me immediately, but I like to investigate them. First thing when I started to investigate hydration, it was a lot about filling object with data. That's probably a way to hydrate too, but for me it's a bit narrow description maybe. So then I came over the analogy of this dry food thing, that like made a lot of sense to me. So let's say I have this bag of dried tomato soup, which I think a lot of us Norwegian at least grew up with and still eats a lot. You just fill water into it, and then that red powder becomes this delicious soup. And this is a lot like what happening with the HTML we had. Like we had this HTML, it was our site in one way, but it was not working yet. The only thing we had to do was to hydrate it, and then you get the delicious soup. Yeah, I think what's the whole point is that in that powder, everything you need for a tomato soup is there. You just like need to activate it. So going forward from that, seeing what the React docs says about hydrate, which the docs I think are really nice. Maybe one of the nicest docs out there. So it says that the ReactDOM hydrate is same as render, but it's used to hydrate a container whose HTML contents was rendered by ReactDOM server. React will attempt to attach event listeners to the existing markup. So that was kind of the thing that we did in the code. So you can just replace render with it, and it will hydrate it for you. But there is some gotchas here, and they are explained in the docs, but I think it's easy to oversee them. So the two main things, React expects that the render content is identical between the server and the client. So that sound maybe easy, but in reality it's hard to make them not identical. And the second thing is even more confusing, probably. There are no guarantees that the attribute differences will be patched up in case of mismatches. But I think, okay, so it says that if the server and the client mismatch, you have no guarantee that the result will be correct. But ReactDOM will actually try to patch it for you, and in my experience, they patch it quite a lot. So like 9 out of 10 times or even more, it will just patch it up and everything will work. But that's last time it will not. So what actually are hydration issues and how can we avoid them? You get these warnings when they occur in your console. At least when they're in dev mode. In production, of course, they are silenced, but in dev, you get those. And it's always something like expected server HTML to contain a matching something in something. It could be like here, div in now, it could always be span in span, div in span, or whatever actually. It maybe don't make sense to you when you first see them, because when you look at the DOM, everything looks fine. So, okay, you think like most of us developers, it's a warning, ignore it. If it's an error, take care of it. So you're just ignoring it and go further. But yeah, you shouldn't do that. You should care about this actually. And a little tip for Gatsby user, you can enable a flag called the dev SSR flag, and then you will see these errors in development. At least when I worked with Gatsby, you didn't see this in development either, so it was even harder to catch them. I think in Next you will see this anyway, and maybe we will see them in Gatsby by default now, but I will suggest you to add the dev SSR flag. So how does this occur? It probably occur when you're using something with window or document, something that is really specific for the browser and that the client cannot do it. So a really simple example here, getting the window inner it. It could be like everything. It could be the intersection API. It could be the file uploader. It could be everything, media query, window media query, or like everything that is attached to the window, or if you try to do something with the document. And then you write this, and then you try to build it with Node, and you will get this error. And that's fine, because this will never hit production, so it's good. And Node does not understand window, so you get this reference error, so it's perfect. Errors are fine, it can be fixed. So then, like, your initial thought, it could be like this. Okay, then we need to ensure that Node don't read this. So we say if type of window is undefined, don't run this code. If it's not undefined, run it. So we do that to our code. So we fix it like this probably, and then we try to build it again, and build succeed. And we are happy, and we go home, and then at some point this will happen. Things will blow up and start to, like I call it, dehydrate. And when something is dehydrated, it's stopped working correctly. So why does this happen? It's happening because with the type of window undefined thing, the server and the client see different things. The server see the one at the left, it just returns null based on our code, and the client see the thing at the right. So that's a mismatch. You will get the warning in development, and if you ignore it and just runs it, you can run into hydration bugs. So typical bugs, DOM nodes can be at the wrong place. DOM nodes can be missing. DOM nodes can have broken styling. I think I have experienced all of this at some point. And the scary thing is that it just pops up in production, because it will probably work in development. because development often runs render and not hydrate. Yeah, there's they are quite known, but they can happen like accidentally. And there are a lot of issues on this, both on Stack Overflow and on GitHub. So like typical error is that page refresh break styles. And it's often happen on page refresh because with framework like NextJS, the routing will happen client side if you click around, and then you do a hard refresh, and then hydrate will run, and then you will get these errors popping up. And on GitHub, on the React repository, there was a lot of issues on it earlier. I think they has been answered quite well. The React core team has answered to them, and I think they've updated the docs a bit, so it's now more clear how we should handle them. Yeah, but they keep on coming, and a lot of people report this as errors, but they are actually application bugs. So there is a great blog post about it, written by a guy called Josh Kumau. Recommends you to read it, explains it quite easily, the perils of rehydration. So this is the screenshot here is from his article, and this is like typical hydration bug will look like. Thing will just look messed up, and it will look like a dehydrated website. So the culprit of all this was this type of window equal undefined thing. That was like the one thing that did mess things up. And the solution to it is, instead of doing that thing, is to do a two-pass rendering, which is also recommended by the React docs. So then they first have a render that happens on mount and the initial render. So React hydrates run, it's mounting the app, and then it's rendered. And then do a second render on did mount. So then you do a set state, and it will render again, and then it will render client-specific things. So the fixed code will look something like this. Okay, if you just remove the first this time thing, it shouldn't be there. You should only use state. So we need to run this on did mount. So with functional component, we use a use effect, which is setting the client. If you are doing class components, you have a separate method called did mount that you can use. And then we on did mount set is client true, and then we're rendering our client-specific code. And we can, of course, make a reusable hook out of this, which we can use throughout our application. And it can be used like this. So whenever we use this hook, then we always do a second render. And that is good. You will never have hydration issues. But you should also think a little bit about how often you are using this, because this can slow down rendering quite a bit. So if like a lot of your app is client specific, you should maybe considering server-side rendering in the first place. But if it's like small parts here and there, I think this is a totally fine way of doing it. And you can also make a like client-only component and that you can use in your app and just wrap everything that's client-specific around it. So I've seen discussion on the NextJS repository, for example, that maybe NextJS should provide a client-only component, and that maybe be a good idea, and maybe make it more clear. Today, NextJS are actually providing a process browser thing, and that process browser variable will also give you hydration issues. So it's not that good to use. So they actually, yeah, I think that might be a good idea. if they provided it, but they don't do right now. So I think in your Gatsby or NextJS project, it should be good to just have a client-only component that you can use. So doing it this way, your DOM will be happy and SpongeBob will be happy, and yeah, it's great. So last year, I just have some final topic to like the future of hydration and where we are going forward, and just going to like spend a little bit time on this concepts of partial hydration and progressive hydration. So doing hydration, we kind of have an elephant in the room because server-side rendering with React and hydration maybe isn't the most performant we can do. We are kind of giving the browser the same thing twice. So the HTML we are giving the browser, it's also actually in the bundle, because the bundle contains all of the React code and also the React code that was building the page. So kind of delivering it twice. And the same goes with the state, I think, because the state will also be included in the HTML and then passed up to the window object. So it's not the most performance right now. It's not that it's slow or anything. It's worked perfectly fine, but it could probably be done better. So this smart guy, Adios Mane, performance specialist at Google, wrote a really nice article about it called "The Cost of Client-Side Rehydration," where he like brings up this topic and like explain the thing that it actually received twice, and you can discuss how much it gives the user to like get that first rendered dead HTML, like the powder thing, because it's not usable yet. So if you first get the usable website and then you get the working website later, then you will get like pure client side render React app. Then you maybe can discuss if this improves or not the page load. So, but he also suggests some solutions to it. One of them is to avoid rehydration altogether and to a purely server render thing. That's probably not so easy for most modern websites or applications. So, but of course, maybe sometimes you should consider just doing some static HTML. But I think in most of modern websites, you need to have some client-side things on top of it. So then I have this, I also explain this concepts of partial hydration and progressive hydration, and this is really interesting, I think. I think this is kind of the future of server-side rendered React. So we have this concept of partial hydration, where you just hydrate some parts of the website, because you have this site with a lot of static content. You have this header, you have maybe some images, some text, and you don't need to hydrate those because they are just going to be like static anyway. So we actually don't only need to hydrate the things that are going to be interactive. So then you can have this concept of partial hydration. And that will like cut the bundle size in only a few percentage because now the bundle only needs to contain that one component, and the rest could only be built server side. So I think in this way we are a little bit back to the roots, a little bit back to like HTML sites with some JavaScript powder on top of it. I think that's nice. I think that's a good direction. And this other concept of progressive hydration is also nice. And these two concepts can be used together also. But progressive hydration is about hydrate only the things that are visible. So you can, for example, use intersection observer and discover what the user is seeing in DOM, and then you can hydrate only that part the user see. So that will also like take your code splitting to a new level, because you can have your code bundle split, and then you can just load it when the user reach that content, because you already have this static HTML that the user see, and then you just hydrate it on command. So there is some really interesting projects out there. I have this one project called the Next Super Performance, where they actually have done this concept of partial hydration, and it's also working, and it's quite awesome, but it's not ready for production yet. So it's more like a proof of concept, but it does it, and it runs NextJS under the hood, but it replaced like all the client-side part of Next with its own version using React. And I think the syntax they are using for this is quite nice too. So you have this with hydration higher order function thing that you can wrap things that you want to render. You need to do a bit more things right now when you're using it to like get things to work. But I really like this syntax that you can use after you have done that, and then just say that let the rest be static and hydrate this one. And the React core team is focusing on this too. So we have this new mode coming up that you're probably familiar with called Concurrent Mode. They call it a new mode because they are changing like fundamentals of how React works. So they cannot like release it in batches with small features because there is fundamental changes there. So they grouped it into a new mode, and it's a lot of interesting things they're doing, especially for performance. So to use it, you can install it already with the React app experimental, and then you can try these new features. And they offer a new render method. So this explains maybe why they need to have it in a new package, and the render is completely different. And one of the reasons is that you can do partial hydration and progressive hydration with it. So if you see all the new features coming up, you see that hydration actually is quite a big part of it. You have 3 features. So they're going to support progressive hydration and selective, or as I call it earlier, partial hydration. And yeah, that's really, really interesting, and really looking forward to try it out and when it hit production. So yeah, just a quick summary. So don't do the type of window undefined thing. Then thing will break at some point. And second, stay tuned for new ways to hydrate. Yeah, if you do it, then SpongeBob will not look like this, but he will be happy like this, like we want him. So yeah, thank you. I think that was all I had for now. And if there is any question, I'm happy to answer them, or if not, take a break probably.
All right, thanks, Frederick. Awesome talk. There's a question, actually. I've posted that in the chat here. I'm not sure if you can see it. Can you find it?
Actually, no, I think. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Okay, it should be on. Nice.
Yeah. How would you deal with web-specific APIs that don't always act similar in Node? Example, new Intel number formats, the style concurrency, and you try to format it. Yeah, that's a really, really good question, I think. It's also a thing that is quite hard to like catch in any way, because this is kind of a bug that don't really give you any error or anything. So you need to like know this, and you cannot like put it into your ASLint config or anything. So you just need to be aware of it. And I wasn't aware of that myself actually, and I think it also depends a little bit of which version of Node you're running. If Node supports that or not, I'm not sure about that. I'm just saying it. But if you know it acts differently, I will definitely put it on the second render, the client side render. And I don't know if this will error on Node or not. If you do, like kind of forced to put it into the second render, but yeah, don't know if that gave a good answer, but that's what was I had. Definitely going to check it out.
Yeah, awesome. Right, so I guess we can. The only bad thing about online conference is that you can hear the clap in the background, but we can at least imagine that, I guess. Sure. Thank you very much for the presentation, Frederick. I think this is pretty much it for the first talk. To everyone out there, the next talk will be in about 20-ish minutes, 25 minutes. So we'll take a small break. What you can do in between that break is actually check out the challenge that is running from one of our sponsors, Auth0. You actually can attempt to implement a login. If you get it to work, you get I see the claps now in the chat, by the way. So yeah, we get it on time. So you can get a headset if you complete the challenge. So you can do that, of course, in between the sessions. So thanks everyone for joining. I guess we'll see each other in about 25-30 minutes. Thank you, Frederick. Again, clap from everyone. I can't do that for everyone though, but you can imagine it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, and see you in around 25 minutes. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye.